Since changing the name of the Eclectic Americana Friday morning drive time radio show on January 20th, 1989 to the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club, the DJs in the collective have strived to entertain and inform our listeners. Airing from 6 to 9 a.m. Pacific at KZSC 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California, the Bushwhackers usually have 2 interviews a week, each airing for about half an hour. We're not afraid to ask questions or admit that we don't know something, and we don't mind taking deep dives or following a tangent as we get into how sausage is made in local, county, or state politics, or learning about things going on in our community, or discussions with artists. Our interviews are not scripted and are produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange.
So, in Bushwhackers fashion.
Yes.
In such
There's a lot
Bushwhackers
of texting
fashion
going on right now.
There's a lot of,
here.
people's phones are going,
Yes.
It's 7 a.m. and the world is waking up. And we are joined by Ben Rice.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ben. So, Ben Rice, could you please introduce yourself? We didn't know you were coming in. Dangerous Dan booked you because we originally had our interview with California State Senator John Laird at 7:30. That's our typical slot. Is the first of every month is John Laird. And Dan called you up, Ben. Maybe you can tell this story of
Sure.
how you ended up here.
So Dan had asked me if I could come in this morning and talk about the situation with the WAMM Alliance for Medical Marijuana. That's WAMM. And I said, of course, I'd be happy to. I had an op-ed that was published in the Sentinel earlier in the week. I'd urge everybody to take a look at that. And that helps explain what the issue is. And so when Dan asked me if I'd come in, so I said, sure. So I just showed up, and you guys were at the door. He said, wait, you're not on today. And then found out that, yeah, Dan forgot to tell you. I forgive you, Dan. And these two are the perfect people to do this. And I'm so delighted I get a chance to explain to the community what's going on here. So thank you again for letting me do this.
Absolutely. We're stoked to have you. And admittedly, Kaos and I did not get the chance to prepare for this as much as we would have liked to, because it sounds like this is something that is well and truly worth a deep dive. So I'm wondering, for those of us who are entirely unaware of WAMM and what WAMM is, what it means specifically for the city of Santa Cruz, could you give us a very baseline introduction to that topic?
Sure.
And talk about why it's important?
Happy to. Valerie Corral and her then husband lived in Nevada when they were your age and going to school. And Valerie was pre-med and was in a car accident. She was a passenger in a car and had massive injuries, including brain damage, and started. This is many, many, many years ago, because she's almost my age now. And among the injuries were grand mal seizures, which doctors were not able to help, and she was literally going to die. And after a couple of years, Michael realized that there was some research being done in Israel about seizure disorders, and they had determined that rats were their seizures would go away with marijuana. Oddly enough, this was funded by the United States government those many decades ago.
Amazing.
Right? Yeah, and when did we find out about it, right? Yeah. So Mike and Val tried marijuana, and it stopped her seizures. Well, Nevada wasn't a very comfortable place for cannabis users in those days, so they moved to Santa Cruz. And they had this beautiful piece of property up off of Swanton Road, north of town, and grew some plants. And eventually they were raided by the local authorities, and Valerie was looking at 3 years in prison. That's what the district attorney was asking for. But on the verge of the trial starting, they had let the DA and the judge know that they were going to use an argument that's really hard to make. I by the way, was 40 years a criminal defense lawyer. And I was WAMM's lawyer for many years. But I was their lawyer for this. I was in Alaska, but at that point. But they were on the verge of trial, and the district attorney and the judge said, this defense you're offering, we think it probably is appropriate. And the defense is necessity. So, for example, if you're in a car accident and you've been drinking and everybody in the car is intoxicated and above the limit, but someone's going to die if you don't get them to help really fast, that could be a defense.
Right.
So in Val's case, not having marijuana would have killed her. So they're gonna. They said, okay, we're gonna drop this case, and that was the first time it had ever been used anywhere. That defense for marijuana. So they became quite well known at that point, and other people around were going, gosh, I've got cancer, or I've got AIDS, or I've got whatever, and they reached out, and so eventually they started this organization, WAMM Men's Alliance for Medical Marijuana. I would urge all your listeners to look at Lookout. This morning just dropped Senator Laird's opinion piece that describes him coming to Santa Cruz, coming to UCSC, and how important Valerie Corral and WAMM was to him and his friends and the people that he began working with. It's a tremendous opinion piece. Mine's a good one, too. It was in the Sentinel earlier in the week. But that's basically what was the start for WAMM. And it didn't take long for, I mean, it was already starting to happen in San Francisco. Doctors there were realizing how important it was for their patients, the AIDS patients. And so doctors here started going, hey, this is really a thing. And pretty soon, even law enforcement was supporting WAMM. Fast forward several years, Val was one of the people, and her then husband Michael were instrumental in getting the medical marijuana law passed in the state. She was very important to that. And of course, they're becoming more and more well known. There were probably 150 people in their collective at that point. They weren't all living there, but they'd all come out in their wheelchairs and they'd help with whatever they could do, trimming or whatever. And we had a really messed up federal approach at that time.
Right.
And the feds decided to raid the WAMM garden. I happened to be visiting a client in the jail when all of a sudden the head guy at the Santa Cruz County Jail said, Ben, you got to get up to the WAMM garden. The feds are there. They never do this, but they had come into the community with this raid group without telling local law enforcement they were coming.
Whoa.
You know, that could be really dangerous, right? To have all these armed guys showing up and the locals not knowing about it. But anyway, they didn't say anything. So they
quickly, was the WAMM garden, was popping grown there?
Cannabis was being grown there. Oh yeah, a lot of cannabis, because they had 100 and some odd.
I figured that was the implication. Yeah. Okay, so, I just wanted to make sure.
There's some beautiful pictures of that garden that exist, of course.
And really quick, there's something that we read before all of our talk programs, just as station policies. I'll read this really quickly. As a non-commercial educational radio station, KZSC supports the free expression of ideas. Please be aware that the opinions expressed are those of the speakers or artists only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the UC Regents, KZSC staff, management, or underwriters. We welcome your feedback on our programming. Please direct your comments to the Program Review Committee at 831-459-4726 or by email at prc@kzsc.org. Please go on, Ben.
Okay, sure. So the raid takes place. They arrest Mike and Val and take them away. And the rest of the federal agents are chopping down all of the plants that were going to be used for a year's worth of medicine for these people. Well, the WAMM group, community hears about it. There's a phone tree, and so before the agents can leave with all the cannabis, there must have been 40 or 50 WAMM patients that were blocking the road, so they couldn't come down off the hill. Val and Mike were over in San Jose in custody at that point, and the leader of the group put Val on the phone with the patients, and she said, look, I don't want anybody else arrested. I don't want anybody hurt. Let them go. So they left with all the cannabis. They let Mike and Val out on their own promise to appear in court, and the next day we had a meeting at the Val headquarters, and we had the mayor and city council people, and it was a group of about 7 or 8 of us, and we all said, everybody agreed, let's sue these guys. And we did. We filed a federal lawsuit in San Jose. We got an injunction from the judge against like a restraining order, telling the federal agents, stay away from WAMM. And so and then we had a cannabis giveaway down at the city hall, in front of the city hall. We told everybody what we were going to be doing, and so these patients came up and were one by one given their allotted amount of marijuana.
So, to jump ahead a little bit, that's a little bit of WAMM's backstory. What is it that WAMM does currently now that marijuana is legal?
In California.
Is legal in California. Are you working to like get people that were like imprisoned for marijuana like released, or what is it that WAMM does?
So ironically, we won that lawsuit, and the federal government agreed. We stopped the lawsuit where we were after 2 years of fighting, and they said, okay, we won't raid any medical marijuana collectives in the country if they are, like you, obeying your state and local rules.
Right.
Great. Okay, so that's how it was left. Fast forward now, and for all the years since, WAMM has, delivered that same kind of help to people. Valerie's been at the bedside of dying people more than any doctor will ever know. Any of us will ever know. She's like the Mother Teresa of this stuff, and is known throughout the world. But when legal recreational use was passed in California, it didn't have a carve out for organizations like WAMM. So the building they were in, the owner of the building came to him and said, I'm really sorry, but I can't let you stay here. I can't let you work out of my building because my insurance company is going to dump me because of the law change. Weird. But so they've really been scraping by for some years now. And then Bryce Berryessa owns a dispensary on Soquel Drive by 41st Avenue. It's called the Treehouse. Great place. And he offered to let WAMM patients come there and pick up their WAMM medicine, and also have their monthly meeting upstairs in their facility. It's worked out okay. It's hard for patients who are in Santa Cruz to get out there. The numbers are way down, maybe 40 a month, down from 100 plus. So the city has a map that shows where dispensaries can operate. It's a very conservative map. It's been there for a long time. And one of those locations is on Laurent Street, downtown on Mission, at the bakery, if you know that wonderful bakery that's now closed. And that's one of those locations. So Bryce and Valerie went, holy smokes, let's get that building. And let's work together and open, so WAMM will have a home again, and people will be able to get there more easily. So that's what they started doing, and they put a lot of money into it, hundreds of thousands of dollars, all of Valerie's money. And then you have to jump through hoops through the planning department in the city. They did that. Planning department said, okay. So then that was appealed, because it turned out the Santa Cruz High principal and others in that, their board and stuff said, oh my God, that's too close to our high school. And so they appealed it to the way this works is you get a planning department, okay, and then if someone wants to appeal, it goes to the commission that oversees it. It's a citizen commission. And they okayed it as well. So you got the map, the planning department, and the planning commission all going okay. Well, that is now appealed and going to be voted on by our city council a week from Tuesday, the 14th.
The 14th.
Downtown Santa Cruz. So we are going to have a group meeting of WAMM patients and people who, like John Laird and our assemblywoman, Gail Pellerin is on our team now. The city and county health director, Arnie Leff, will be there. A great UCSC prof that's just retiring, Craig Reinerman's going to be a speaker. We're going to have a number of people talk about this. And we're trying to persuade the city council not to accept this or not to overturn all that stuff that's made it so obvious to WAMM, this is the perfect place. And it really is. And they're misrepresenting things in their approaches. The most recent one is, WAMM is just a cover for the dispensary owner. Well, that's just BS. And our sheriff, Jim Hart, has said, oh, no, he knows Val, and he says she's not about money, and she is about helping people, and he knows it. And I know it because I represented lots and lots of people who benefited from WAMM, and I know the difference.
If you're just joining us, we're here with Ben Rice from WOMAN's Alliance for Medical Marijuana, and you're here listening to Bushwhackers Breakfast Club on KZSE Santa Cruz. I'm Chaos.
And I'm Calamity Kyle. We're talking to Ben Rice once again. You said, Ben, you're a lawyer as well as, and you've written an opinion for Santa Cruz Sentinel.
Yes.
You're working with WAMM. Fantastic. So that, I think, is an excellent introductory breakdown to WAMM, and it also emphasizes the effort that is the vote that's taking place next week on the 14th.
Yes.
And that is definitely something that we'd like for our listeners to be aware. It seems like Dan still might have plans to talk to you next week, like closer to the date of the vote, and perhaps that's where the confusion took place. So in that case, I'll say let's put a pin in this now.
Excellent.
And perhaps we'll reapproach it next week. Perhaps also with John Laird, who will be joining us at 7:30 next Bushwhackers on May 11th, and then we'll take that opportunity to do an even deeper dive. For now, we've still got some requests, so let's get to those.
And
yes,
if you appreciate listening to Bushwhackers and all of the amazing, wonderful, thrown in the mix interviews that we do, please go to kzse.fm/give, and we would appreciate anything that you have to give to us here at the station.
Hey, thanks for having me on, you two.
Do you have anything,
yes,
like any last things you would like to leave us with before next week when you possibly get to say a little bit more?
No, but except to say, please support WAMM. If you tell your friends to please, write letters to the city council. Tell your friends who may, be doctors or just, have some juice. Look at this. Read John Laird's. It's an incredible op-ed. Mine's pretty good too, but John's is amazing. It's heartwarming, and he's a UCSC grad like my wife. So thanks, you guys, for having me, and I'll see you. I won't see you next week, but it's very nice meeting you both.
Amazing.
Thank you
so much, Ben. We appreciate you coming in. Fantastic.
You've been listening to a podcast from an interview on the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club on KZSE 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California. This interview has been produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange. KZSE is a student-run college and community non-commercial educational radio station broadcasting from the UC Santa Cruz campus. You can stream KZSE online at kzse.org. Thanks for listening.